it was under that background when the government designed its refugee. And to back that, in that 1998, only 16,000 people came to South Africa in 1 year, in the whole year, asking for refugee status. Fast forward 2008, problem starts in Zimbabwe, as you know, and lots of people in avalanche, they ran south into South Africa. The refugee reception mechanism, the refugee system was actually overrun because, as I said, it was not designed to handle such a large number of people all at the same time. Nobody foresaw anything like that. And so it was overwhelming. And so they could just not handle the number of people because they were all coming as refugees. And some of them were actually even defrauding South African documents. So a decision was made by then that, look, let there be a special dispensation away from this migration refugee mechanism, something that is temporary until these problems are resolved. Okay. And that's why a special dispensation was arrived at. It was called different names, but the most recent one is the ZEP. It was meant to be a temporary document until the situations that gave rise to it have been resolved. But then, unfortunately, and very unfortunately, what was being envisaged never materialized. 2014, nothing changes. It gets renewed for a period of 3 years. The period of 3 years expires 2017, nothing happens. It gets renewed, this time for a period of 5 years. The period of 5 years is expiring December 2021. You know, and the question is, for how long do you keep on renewing this document, which you call temporary? The implications is that when it was given, there were conditions. And one of the most important conditions is that once it's given to you, you cannot apply for any other permit, any other mechanism. And remember, South Africa has got 17 different types of permits or visas. In other words, you cannot regularize your stay using any other mechanism, which are provided for in the immigration laws of the country, because we've been given this special one. And let me tell one of the complications which people are trying to ignore because they believe South African laws you can just set aside anytime you want. You are aware that in terms of the law, when you marry a South African, you then can apply for permanent residency after 5 years of the marriage and eventually be naturalized, be South African. Now imagine coming with a ZEP, you are living here, and you can't choose people who they must fall in love with. I mean, globally, love has never known borders. Then you get married, and when you want to regularize your stay by the fact that you are now married, they say, no, but you had a condition. You know, some, to get an ZEP, you had to satisfy 3 things. Well, I'm at the 4th one, police clearance from Zimbabwe. But the 3 main things is if you can give a proof that you have got a job here in South Africa, even though you were given a job without any documents, but you do have that job. 2, if you could prove that you are studying, even if you didn't have papers, there's some institution that allow you to study. And 3, that you are running a business. Then, of course, once the police clearance clears you, then you get the document. Now, that studying for all this period will lead you somewhere. Maybe you obtain a degree, you know, at a very high level. That is a scarce skill, and you can apply for a scarce skill visa and all that. And they show you the document. They say, but, you know. So it was going to cause problems at one stage or other. But the most important central question: how permanent is a temporary arrangement, and why should a human being live under a temporary arrangement for life? So we then said, no, man, this can't go on. Let's stop it, but give people a chance to apply for all these other documents that exist. I'm choosing 1998 because it's the year on which the Refugee Act in South Africa was enacted. And that all these people who came, who eventually got Zimbabwean permits, were applying for asylum. That means they came in the name of asylum. And me and you know it was mostly because of economic migration. That was a large number. Not that asylum did not exist, but I started there because all of them, when they come in, they said, look, I want to apply for refugee. Since in the conventions, the international convention, in the local South African law, there's nothing about economic migration. So they chose that which was available, even though it's not something that is suitable for them. You know?
And right now, as we speak.
So it started only in 2009, after the 2008 problems, economic problems. But remember, South Africa was also not spared from the 2008 economic downturn. You remember it was a global thing. Yeah. We were also victims, but there was a belief that, no, South Africa is better off. I do not have a number off my head because people talk of Zimbabweans in South Africa as if every Zimbabwean who is here is on a ZEP. ZEP is only 178,000 people. Yes, that's what is in our books now. There are a lot of Zimbabweans here who are in our universities on a study visa. There are a lot of Zimbabweans here who are on a scarce skill visa. There are a lot of Zimbabweans who are on visitors visa. Lots of them who are on relatives visa. And of course, those who have got permanent residency in South Africa and those who have been naturalized. So, yeah, and then there are hundreds of thousands who are still asylum seekers, meaning who are still within the system. They've never yet got their refugee status. So you shouldn't take them as a homogeneous group that they are all falling under one category and this is the number. No, nothing like that exists. Well, it was extremely slow, and I think particularly because people were influencing them not to apply. Firstly, they were told that this thing is going to be thrown out in court. You don't have to bother yourself. Secondly, they were made to believe that the minister just wants to get rid of you. This thing is not going to happen. People won't qualify, etc., etc. So they were not applying. Now, recently, the numbers have surged because those who applied, we responded to them. There are two groups of people who are applying now. Firstly, you apply for a waiver, which people don't even talk about. Meaning, when you apply for some of these visas, there are rules that apply. Like saying you can't come in as on a particular type visa and apply for the other type. You've got to go home. Like saying when you apply for a scarce skill visa or a worker's visa, you've got to go, a work visa, you've got to go to the Department of Employment and Labor, get the certificate, bring it to Home Affairs. You know, all those requirements. Yes. We ask people to apply for waivers away from those requirements and give reasons. That I've been here, blah, 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 I've got children and so many. They are at school, and can you please give me a waiver not to go to that department because I've already got a job or I've already got a business and all that. Then once we give you that waiver, you then apply for an appropriate visa. Now, those were very slow, and I can tell you they are picking up. Every day I'm signing thousands of them.
Okay.
every day. Just in the past 2 days alone, I signed 1,700 letters of waivers, which I was giving to people to start going. I'm just giving you an example over 2 days that I have to put my own signature on 1,700. Say, you are given a waiver, you can go to apply. So they are picking up. And they picked up late because people were told that the department is not even responding, that they are lying to you, that you are not going to get this, you're not going to get that. I don't know how people determine that. When we took a decision not to extend, that was 2021, yes. We wrote them a letter and say, no, look, you are giving up to December 2022. This is what you must apply for. We even left numbers there. If they don't understand, what must they, where should they inquire? And we took that letter, put a copy on our website. We then took the letter, bought space in the newspapers, and printed it there. We sent a copy to the Zimbabwean embassy in case some people may rush to the embassy and say, please, I'm here and I'm confused and all that. And then from there, I met several groups who said they are representing the Zimbabwean community and informed them on exactly what to do. So it's not that there was no information. It's only that there was a lot of noise from those who say they know a lot. And quite a number of them were not saying what I've said. They were saying what they think I've said or how, you know, they were putting their own interpretation on this issue. For instance, they will say a number of people do not qualify for some of the visas that exist. They won't qualify, you know that very well, because some are working gardens, some are domestic workers. Where does that come from? We have never said so. All you are saying is regularize your stay. And when I listen, they believe everybody who's from Zimbabwe to qualify must have a scarce skill. They said, you know, the people at the lower end, you know, there are so many of them, people are on the scarce skill. We never said apply for a scarce skill visa. We said apply for a visa which is appropriate to what you're doing. And let them see from us how we respond. But there was already a ruling, public ruling made by people who made themselves judges. You know, take for instance, they even mentioned the number of children who are at school going, who are of school going age, who will have to stop their school immediately and go back and start in Zimbabwe, disadvantaging children. Now, in South Africa, there's a Children's Act, which is very clear about the rights of children and what they must get, which simply states that in every decision you take, you must take the best interest of the child into consideration. There's no way when we took this decision where we said we are now suspending the Children's Act or we are sending it aside. We never said so. So all the stories that were being said are figments of imagination and people who are peddling lies. Some of them are doing it for a living, by the way. Like these lawyers who are saying, no, I'm going to represent you and all that. Many of them are doing that for a living. And they go on feeding people things we never said or we never intended. And remember, when exemption permits were given, they were not only given to Zimbabweans. They were given to Angolans and Basotho and Zimbabwe and 3 countries. And the Angolan one came to an end.
When was that, Minister?
I can't remember the year, but it's quite recent. They can check for you the date. It came to an end. There was no uprising, there was no noise. Maybe, I don't know, it might be because
it's a small group of
people. It was a very small group of people. But it did come to an end. And it was dealt with accordingly. And nobody complained. The Basotho one is the Lesotho exemption permit is ending at the end of this year. Yes. So it's not, and there's this belief that no, Zimbabweans are being targeted.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Zimbabweans are hated, are being targeted. Lots of innuendos were thrown at me. Let me tell you, according to our statistics here, 35% of all the scarce skill visas that were issued for the whole world, 35% went to Zimbabweans. All the scarce skill visas. Close to 20% of all the study visas equally went to Zimbabweans. 14% of all the relatives visas also went to Zimbabweans. About 15% of all the general work visas also went to Zimbabweans. So where is a documentary proof that Zimbabweans are being discriminated upon? Can somebody show me and put that proof here and say, look, here, this is what's discrimination? You know, I read recently that some universities no longer want Zimbabwean lecturers, and they even said Basotho lecturers, and they were quoting the ZEP. We made it very clear that the ZEP is still in force until the end of June. Even the banks did that. We wrote them letters and say, no, this document is still valid until such and such a period, when some of them were stopping their bank accounts. But then we realized it was a misunderstanding. We corrected it immediately. Now, if universities have got their own internal problems, they can't quote the ZEP as the reason why they must act. So the ZEP issue is very innocent, but much maligned, some by misunderstanding, others by ulterior motives. I met mostly with the ambassador. And even 2-3 weeks ago, we're meeting with the ambassador because he was telling me that they are making preparations. I said, well, that's for the embassy of Zimbabwe, whatever preparation they choose to do.
To assist the people to go back home.
Well,
that don't get the permits.
That is what they were saying. And they were asking for the numbers and say, but how do I know? Who knows how many people are not going to get permits? Even I don't know. It depends on the application a person submits. There's nobody who can guess, even those who are going to court, who say such permits won't be forthcoming. No. They qualify for a general work visa. But I can't, I can't preempt it. But if you are a general worker, you apply for a general work visa.
They don't have to say to you that I've been a gardener in South Africa for 10 years and so on. There's a waiver that comes with that.
That's what they are saying in their applications. That's when they are asking for waivers. Yes. And as I said, I've signed thousands and thousands of waivers by now. And I'm still signing to give them the waivers so as to smoothen the work. But I can't tell who is going to fail because some of them, as you can see, what they are presenting that now is outside of the laws of the country. People must know that the laws of the country must still be respected. Yes.
Welcome back. You're watching The Chase. I am Eben Mabunda. Well, the conversation, of course, continues with the South African Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi.
I want to regularize that. You can't just give a blanket and say everybody's absorbed. Under which act of parliament will I be quoting? Because you've got to follow the laws of the country. Yes. As to illegal immigrants, no country, as far as I know, will know exactly how many illegal people are there. Because if you know about them, they'll cease being illegal. If you know about them, you will act upon it. So the reason that people are known is because they are illegal. You can't say you know an illegal person and that they are so mean. Why should they remain illegal if you know about them? We don't know, but these particular ones we know. We have got their addresses. We have got their phone numbers, which they give to us at least. We know that they go home every December and come back. They cross through the borders and come back. We know that. We do have that information. Because there's also a false story that some people have been here for so long, they no longer have they know no other country. I don't know how you say a person knows no other country when they go home every time. And we see them when they go through the borders. And we have got that evidence, recorded that this person has crossed the border in December and come back in January, which means they still have a home. All you are saying is, please regularize your stay here. Let's start here. You don't need any visa to come to South Africa. If you are from SADC, all SADC countries have got sort of that provision. You don't need any visa. All you need is a passport. That's all. A passport, which is wanted when you cross every border anywhere in the world. Show me any country in the world where they say, no, you can come in, no passport is needed. Even the AU's free movement protocol, which is not yet implemented, was being spoken about, they were not envisaging that people won't have passport, because you have got to identify the person. You've got to know who is this person crossing from this part into that part. So when roadblocks are set, it's for people who come not even with a passport in the first place. That means with nothing, meaning you don't even know who this person is. You don't even know where the person comes from. You don't even know what they are capable of. I'm sure you know that that's very dangerous. It can't be allowed anywhere in the world. And I'm very, very, very surprised that some people believe South Africa must just allow it. There's no country that can sit comfortably not knowing who the people who are in the country, who are they and who are they from. If you cross through Beit Bridge, why should we assume that you are from Zimbabwe? There are lots of people who cross through Beit Bridge. It's a gateway, Who
come from other countries.
So why should we allow anybody to come in without documents? For what reason? What country works like that in the world? Why is it expected of South Africa? Unlike all the countries on the continent, South Africa is the only one that doesn't have an encampment policy. So you won't know that these people are there in that camp. There's no such a thing. They just live around. And people abuse that, take advantage of it, just disappear. Some actually come in officially. So when I say officially, I mean they announce themselves officially. They go to the refugee.
Documents.
No, even those who don't have documents, because they go to the refugee reception center. If you have got a reason to come in and apply for asylum, even if you have got no documents, the law says, please announce yourself in the nearest refugee reception center so that you are known and given a permit that you are an asylum seeker. There are 5 refugee reception centers in South Africa, in Musina, Desmond Tutu, Gqeberha, Cape Town, and eThekwini. So some people arrive, and it doesn't say you must arrive there with a paper. You are announcing yourself that, look, I ran away from home, I want to apply for asylum. They give you what is called a Section 22 permit. That is documentation. And this noise about people not being documented, quite a number of them are documented. But people think about a specific thing, a specific permit as documentation, any other, they don't want to recognize. So when you are having a Section 22 permit, it's documentation. It's official documentation. You can't be arrested. It gives you a right to be an asylum seeker. And it says you are here between 3 and 6 months, during which you must present yourself and it's renewable, Only after you get successful as a refugee, you get a Section 24 permit. It means you are under international protection. So some people go to the refugee reception center, they get documented, they get a Section 22 permit, boom, they disappear. Yes. Recently, the chairperson of RASA, Refugee Appeals Authority of South Africa, was complaining about that because we sat with United Nations to deal with this backlog. It's not a backlog of asylum seekers. It's a backlog of people who have been rejected by the appeal. Because the appeal process in South Africa is unending. It's what we call a blue sky approach. You just keep on appealing. Not that you are not giving a response, you were. But you appeal the decision. So that's where the backlog is. United Nations gave us 143 million rand over a period of 10 years. We hired 36 lawyers to sit down and look into those appeals because they are trained as legal, people, And in the beginning, it was very slow. People were not coming. They've got the files, but in terms of the law, you don't speak to a file. An appeal is like a court of law. You need a fiscal body. You need to appear in person. And people have just disappeared. Some of them, the address they gave is an internet cafe. When they arrived at the refugee reception center, they provided an address from an internet cafe, an email. When you start looking for them, they've got nowhere to be found. And then you are blamed that, no, you have got backlogs here which you are not able to deal with. When actually you are finding it difficult to find such a person. It's only now that RASA have devised some mechanism of how to get them, So now, if you appeared at the refugee reception center, you were given a Section 22 permit, it expired, you don't come to renew it, then you become illegal because your document has expired. And when you say you renew, we don't mean coming to queue again to officials. If you go to Desmond Tutu Reception Center, the biggest, there is a kiosk there where you renew on your own, just like when you work on the ATM. When you go to an ATM, you don't need any person working in the bank. Yeah. You don't need any bank clerk. You talk to the machine. There's a kiosk there that do that. But if you allowed everything to expire, you then become illegal. There's no question about it. For instance, the issue of marriage. There are people who abuse that. In South Africa, if you are married to a South African, that's a license to permanent residency and citizenship. And nobody can control marriage, I want to emphasize. Marriage happens across borders and globally. But when you link it with citizenship, you are forming a perverse incentive where women get targeted. Corruption right here in Home Affairs also take place through bribery. You bribe a Home Affairs official and say, please let me marry this woman and so that I get documents. Some is an agreement between them and it's a transaction. It's a transaction. It happened even with university students. That, look, let me marry you. I'm going to pay for your fees. And I get my documents. When you get your degree, I get my documents. We part. We see that here because people don't even know that once you are married, you don't part in home affairs, you must go to the courts. They come here and say, no, I no longer want this marriage. And some of us tell us, well, no, I've never met this gentleman. But when you go into the books, we found their fingerprints where they've signed. It's only that the marriage has outlived its usefulness. So you can't have marriages like that. Some produce children. What then happened to the children? Some actually produce children because some have also learned that the courts have ruled that once you have got a child in South Africa, then you can't be required to leave because that child needs you. So you have got lots and lots of children who were used as instruments rather than as human beings. So it's quite irritating. It shouldn't be happening that way. The number of Home Affairs tried to resolve it, but it was very clumsy, the way they tried to resolve it. And the judge just laughed at it and threw it away. Where it says, if we give you documents, if you divorce that woman before 5 years has expired, we take the documents back. Of course, it was a joke. How do you tell people, or no, remain married for at least 5 years? Yes, for at least 5 years. You can't do that. Yes, but Home Affairs did try. And as I'm saying, it's laughable to try and solve the problem that way. Another way we have done is to, because some of these people who do this actually have wives back home. Yes, I'm sure you saw a professor at Fort Hare University. Yes, I'm saying this because this was one of the few cases that came out in the open. But we know thousands of them where they've got their wife back home, they come here, marry here, and stay. After 5 years, start applying for documents, divorce that woman and go home and take the real wife. Yes, bring the real wife here because he's now a South African. The real wife, deserves documents, and the one who was here is left in the lodge. So we've got what you call a proof of non-impediment, where you must bring a letter from your Department of Foreign Affairs that proves that back home you are not married to anybody. So you can get married here in South Africa. You don't have a wife anywhere. You are not bound to anybody. But it's not really solving the problem. Well, the law is very clear. Children follow the status of their parents, fortunately. That's what happens. They follow the status of their parents. If a parent is a refugee, the child so born is a refugee. If a parent is on a visitor's visa, the child is regarded as a visitor. Yes, and unfortunately, if the parent is illegal, the child becomes illegal. And fortunately, because most of children are born in hospitals, and when you are pregnant, you go to hospital, nobody can chase you away. I'm sure there is this stories going around that Home Affairs is making people not to get health services because they don't give them document to go to hospital. I've been a minister of health, by the way, in South Africa.
That's what I want to talk about as well.
I've been a minister of health. You don't return somebody away because you can't do so. For instance, immunization. If you go to areas like Limpopo, in the mines around Tawazimbi, when we immunize and we get their figures of immunization, they come back at 120,000. 120,000 means you immunize more people than you're supposed to immunize. How does it come about? It's because they've got a population statistics of that area from the municipality. But anybody they found there, they immunize, even if it's not appearing on the municipality documents. ARVs, we never used to discriminate people when you give them ARVs because that disease will spread. TB, it will spread far and wide. You can't say you, because you come from another country, we don't give you treatment for TB. So they treat them. So pregnant women get into hospitals. Then they get some straight from Zimbabwe itself. If you go to Beit Bridge, 70% of the women who give birth there are from Zimbabwe. Nobody returns them. What then happens is after the child is born, we give them a record of birth, a record that shows where they were born, what date, what time, when, and we expect them to take that back to the country or at least to the embassy to get documentation there, because you can identify that this person comes from such and such an area. Except if that child then is going to be stateless. That means you can't make out where the child comes from. And then you have got to give them South African documents. You know, Botswana is the only country up so far whose minister came to me and informed me publicly, I mean openly, that look, quite a number of middle-class Botswana, they utilize your private hospital to come and give birth. All these huge, you know that South Africa has got a lot of private hospitals, not a secret. They come here and she was saying, let's agree on what type of proof of birth and document will you give to us so that when they come back home, we are able to give them documents. So children do get record of birth. Yes. Hey, look, it's a difficult one because this is a sick person. It's a difficult one. I'm not going to claim that I've got answers. It will have needed discussion at the political level, but I don't think the people from which these countries are coming from are interested, because they believe it's not their problem. It's a problem South Africa. So it is, and I can tell you it causes hardships. Very recently, I was phoned by the CEO of a hospital here in Tshwane. A gentleman arrived in the hospital, produced a South African ID with a name there on the ID and ID number, and was duly admitted. Unfortunately, he passed on. As they were preparing to take him to the mortuary, people arrived from Zimbabwe. This person is Japheth Zwane. They said, no, this is not Japheth Zwane, it's Aaron Motsoaledi. And you are coming to claim it. What do you do? What do you do? You are being told that this person is not what he told you he is. It's ours who are coming to collect him. Do you give them? Do you give them that body? Not knowing them and having different names here in your hospital, in all the records. What do you do? So people phone me. And I said, no, only a judge can make such a decision that somebody who is late, you change their identity after death. That can be very dangerous. Legally very dangerous, because you don't know what might happen. What if you give these people the body and the very following day another family arrives and say, yes. So those things happen, and I am made to understand in Limpopo, it's the order of the day, where even people come and claim bodies. When you give them a list and say, these are the people who were buried as paupers, here is the list. They can't even recognize, because the person who died didn't tell them what name they've used when they arrive here. Okay. So it is causing very serious social disruptions. And I've lived through that, I've gone through it, and I know it. But as I'm saying, when you are dealing with people who are sick, it's a very difficult thing. But let me explain the Krugerstop situation, which was carried on by a Pakistani kingpin. This is how it works. He has got 10 people, for example, who want South African passports. And I'm going to tell you why people like South African. Many of them have got passports from Pakistan, but they are in need of South African passports. And I'm going to explain to you why they need that, which is also not for good reasons. If they've got 10 of such Pakistani or Bangladeshi people who need a South African passport, they get into the township, organize young boys, mostly, who are on Nyaube. That means who are on drugs. I'm sure you know the common street drug in the townships and called Nyaube. They don't organize ordinary kids. They organize those who are on Nyaobe because they know they are always in need of money for a fix. Yes. So they then go to a Home Affairs official who's corrupt. Then he arranges for them to come to the Home Affairs office after hours during the night. Then they bring the 10 Pakistanis and the 10 South African kids on Nyaobe. They bring them together in the office, and the corrupt Home Affairs official facilitates what? The 10 South African kids are asked to apply for a passport. And when they apply for a passport, they write their names, their ID number. Remember, they've got ID, South African IDs, and addresses and all that. And they even put a fingerprint. Only when it's time to take a photo, the Home Affairs official puts them aside and put the guests now to take a photo. So the name is Jafet Zwane, but the picture belongs to somebody from Pakistan. Yes. Remember, when you go to the airports, they don't ask what Jafet Zwane is. They just look at your face. If the face is matching what they are seeing on the document, that name is meaningless to them. Because, I mean, names from other countries, yeah, how will you know what they mean? Yeah, so then the poor boy Unyaobe is given 500 rand for every passport for a passport they've applied for. The Home Affairs official is given 5,000 rand per passport. And we understand the kingpin is going to get up to 40,000 rand from his countrymen and women. Why then do they want this passport? It's because they came here as refugees, or purporting to be refugees rather. And they were given refugee status. But basically these people are business people who want to move across. Now once you are given refugee status anywhere in the world, you are not allowed to go back to your country of birth. That is called re-availment. You are re-avail yourself. Your refugee status will be terminated. So they still want to go to Pakistan because there's nothing wrong in Pakistan. They were lying when they said you are refugee, you are running away.
Oh, so then they'll use the South African passport to go back.
To go back, yes. Then you wouldn't know who has gone back. The person who has gone back is Aaron Mutwaledi, because that's what the passport says. So we had to change the manner in which we give our passports. And this doesn't end here. Our ambassador in Portugal was once called by the Portuguese government very angry that they've caught somebody who's peddling drugs in Portugal, and he's a South African. And that's why they call the South African ambassador. When the South African ambassador went there to visit the person, found that no, this person doesn't come from South Africa, but the name and passports are from a boy here in Atteridgeville who has never left the country, who was surprised when visited. He said, no, I've never left the country. So it can't be me. They said, but you are in jail in Portugal. You know? Yes, he came from another country. So what we did, because passport is for convenience of travel, we could allow a person to apply for a passport in any office in South Africa, maybe even in Cape Town. Come here, collect it in Joburg and head straight to the airport, or Tambo International Airport. We have stopped that. You can only collect the passport in the office where you have applied it. Secondly, the passport used to be activated at printing. We have stopped that. When the passport goes to the office after printing, it's not active. You can't use it. Even if you get it through bribery, you can't use it. You have got to activate it by putting your own fingerprint, so that the fingerprint must
match them.
Yeah, must match. Because the fingerprints that they were putting during the night, with a picture of somebody, if that somebody comes and collect that passport, his fingerprint won't match. So we have done that. The other measures are happening inside on the counter. I can't disclose them.
We were joined by South Africa's Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, for a conversation on the impending deportation of Zimbabweans this June should they fail to regularize their stay in South Africa. We look forward to a conversation with the Zimbabwean ambassador to South Africa, Mr. David Hamadziripi. Well, that's a wrap from the team here at The Chase. Do follow us on our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network as well as at ZTN Prime. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Good evening.
don't do probable things. I can't do just reading from this, guys, for an hour.
No, he said it's probable that you'll have it.